So, Jake, just start at the beginning. How did you first discover your passion for running?
It was back. So I grew up in Hong Kong, and my parents were like they were very active. And where we lived, there was like quite a few people don't believe this, but there is a countryside to Hong Kong, and we lived in that area, and you're just covered by mountain ranges, not ranges, but just mountains. So my parents used to take us hiking on the weekends, and I think it started every weekend. I would go like for a little jog with them, but then during the week at school you play football, you play rugby, you play hockey. So without me realizing, I think I built up such a big aerobic base from just playing all those sports. So when like youngsters ask me, oh, should they concentrate on running? I'm saying no. Like there's no point concentrating on it because at the end of the day, it's such a horrible individual sport at times. Whereas with a with a team sport, you have other people to rely on and everything, and you build such good reputation from that. Then I did some cross country, like all guys do, was getting quite good. And when we came to UK to move to UK, I think I did like played in a rugby training session, and after 20 minutes, I was like, I'm never doing this again because I was half the size. I didn't realize how big 16-year-old English boys were, and like coming from Hong Kong, where it's the difference between like I don't want to sound horrible, but you can see the difference in terms of 16-year-old person from Hong Kong to a 16-year-old English rugby player. Like there's a massive difference in size. And so when I came over, I think just from that day, I was like, no, I'm not playing rugby again. And I did still play football for this rubbish team, just as a fun, just enjoy it. And but I still kept getting like little injuries and everything through college. I didn't have a coach or anything. That's when I started a bit of triathlon because my mum thought at the end of the day, because you're doing the cycling, swimming, it's low impact. The likelihood of injury could reduce, but then you have to also look at amount of training and eating. And then that's when I struggled with eating. So, and then when I came to university, then I joined James D, who was incredible with for me. He set me down and said, "We're just focusing on running." And since then, I've just been a runner.
And yeah, you say about that, obviously, you transitioned from the triathlon into running. So was it James Dean that inspired you to focus solely in the running, or what was the cause?
Yeah, because at university, I wasn't part of a triathlon club. I would just like go on a bike in the gym or go for a swim. And I was never intending on doing any races or anything in triathlon, just running. But I think it showed I wanted to do a bit more training, but I didn't want to introduce like go up to 100 miles a week running when I've never really run that far. So that's why now I do a lot of training, but I do a lot on the elliptical, for example. So I do a lot of cross training to like help me almost boost that mileage up healthily. And yeah, he said like I would on a Wednesday, and when it was the easy day, I would go for a swim in the evening. And I think he said, no, we need to stop doing that. We need to like properly recover now. We need to focus on this running. And it took me a while to like really understand why, because I was enjoying it and I felt like I was getting quite fit. But then when I took that out and just solely concentrated on the running, I then saw my results get quicker and quicker.
And I mean, in 2019, at the European Athletics Championships, you finished eighth in the 10,000 meters. And then obviously you followed that up with the 102 half marathon and a fifth place finish in France. Would you say this kind of moment was when your confidence was growing as a runner and you were like starting to believe in that ability you had?
Yeah, I that half was funny because it was just a random half in France. It was like the Bologna one, and there were like four Africans, and I it was quite funny because the race organized after because normally I get elite entries and everything, but I paid for my entry and everything. I didn't know where the elite start was or anything. And after the race coming fifth and the first European, he was like, "Why didn't you message me?" I was like, I had no clue who to message. And it was quite funny because there were these four Africans, and Africans do tend to go off quite hard. And after the first 800 meters, they already gapped everyone else. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. I've come this far. I just latched on the back. And I know I ran faster then compared to now, but then I had never had all these injuries, setbacks I've had currently. But also, then I had 13 miles of running behind someone the whole way and doing no work in like zero winds, perfect conditions, a fast road race in France. Um, that really was that was a stepping stone. I was like, whoa, like, okay, I am in a good place. An agency called me after that, and I knew I could achieve something quite a lot. And I'm quite glad I ran that quick and agents came to me because I didn't do the best degree at university and I'm not the smartest person. So without running, I'm not really sure what else I would have done. So I'm very, very lucky in that way.
And yeah, obviously, like a year later, you then made your mark on like the international stage. You finished 18th at the World Half Marathon.
Yes.
What
Yes.
was that experience like for you?
It was because it was like during COVID, so all races were over. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved COVID. I thought it was like the best weather the UK's ever had. I
Definitely.
went back home and I followed the guidelines. So I'd only go out once a day, but I would run once. And then I bought like a bike and a cross trainer. So I'd then cross train in the evenings. And I would just do laps and laps of where I lived, just literally killing myself when a lot of people may have like stopped for a bit. But I just thought, you know what, races will come. And I had heard World Half was on, so I was very lucky in that respect. And so I I just thought, okay, just get this done. I did a time trial when we were allowed to go to tracks and stuff with on the track a 10K time trial around 28 flat with just the guys in my house pacing me for 800 meters. So like two would step in, two would drop out, one would step in. So every 800 they pace me. So I knew going into World Half I was in a good place. And again, I'm not afraid of going with the leaders. Like in London Marathon, I will not be going with the leaders because it's a marathon. But when it comes to a half and stuff, like it is for me personally only an hour of hurt, like just over an hour of hurting. And of course, if I was racing Kipling, I'm not going for 56 minutes. But when it's when it's a world half race and they're going for like in the 60 regions to begin with, I was always going to go with it. And at 10K, I wanted to take the lead of it. But I was like, if they almost see this little white kid at the front of the race, they were just gonna throw in like a 4 minute mile, and I was out the back door. Again, that's where I just got latched in the back and just ran as hard as could.
Your first, I love this story, by the way. So, your first full marathon in 2021, you originally planned to pace the race and only run half it, didn't you? And then obviously you ended up winning it in an Olympic qualifying time. How did that come about? Like, how did you decide to, do you know what, I'm going to finish this race and win it?
It's quite weird because 3 weeks before, 4 weeks before or something, I paced the Olympic trials. So you know when Chris Thompson won the race, and that was just emotional. But I was pacing with Callum Hawkins at the time, who had an Olympic spot anyway. And I was still talking at like 16, 17 miles. And this was in Kew Gardens. So it was the weirdest race I've ever done. We did like 30, 15, 16 laps of that thing, Kew Gardens. And I've never been to Kew Gardens before. Um, but I love the idea because, like, you know, in America, they have American Trials Olympics for the marathon. But in Britain, we don't. And it was incredible. And then after that, I knew I could run something quick, but honestly, I never intended to do that marathon. Like on the Wednesday, like 4 days out, I did a 1,500 meter race, for example, and 2 days before I ran 20 miles. The day before, I did a 40-mile bike ride. So I like no intention of. I was a training run. Um, I took no water. My mum gave me one gel, and I was just literally just running along. I was pacing with Phil Sessman. I was quite lucky because mentally it actually helped because it was up in Cheshire, so it was a 7 lap course, and honestly, a lap course is so much easier than, for example, just doing a marathon because instead of thinking, oh, there's 10K to go, 15K to go, you're just counting down the laps. So you're like, okay, I've done 1 lap, there's 6 more. Okay, I've done 5 laps, 2 more laps. And I was pacing this guy who missed the Olympic time by 8 seconds. So I felt quite bad. But at 15 miles, he said, just keep going. He said, one more lap. I did another lap. He's like, one more lap. And I got to 20 miles and I was like, screw this. I've got this far. I know my coach is going to scream at me. My parents are going to scream at me. And I asked the organizer when going past on one of the laps, am I allowed to finish a race? Like, because I just need to make sure I was actually entered. And he said, yeah. And then going on to the last lap, I kind of ditched the guy I was pacing and just went for it. I won it, but I ran the Olympic time and it was out of the window, so I couldn't go.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, that was something that.
No, definitely a crazy story, but an incredible story. Um, I just wanted obviously you touched on taking time away from the sport. In 2023, you shared that you were diagnosed with REDS, which, if people don't know,
Yes.
relative energy deficiency in sport, and you had to obviously take a break from running. Can you walk us through finding out about like the diagnosis and
Uh
I don't-
it was tough because I've always so when I was in I went to a private school for a year and I absolutely hated it. I didn't have like many friends. I just had a really bad relationship with it. I went to this thing called CAMS. I always forget the name, but they work with people who have food disorders, whatever. And I didn't get along with it because I felt like with CAMS, they're very relative. They're just with the normal person, whereas there was no one who knew about sport almost. And then it sounds so stupid. Then in college, I got two stress fractures in my foot because I didn't really have a coach. That's when I was doing a lot of triathlon stuff. But it was a great idea by my mum. But because I wasn't eating enough, I was doing more exercise than we were realizing, even though it was low impact. So I was just burning fuel, breaking my body. And then when I went to university, the first year actually, and my time skin cooker helped me so much. And it sounds so stupid, but going out clubbing twice a week and going to Mackey's after having alcohol, it's probably the worst calories you can take into your body, but it kept me alive almost
yeah,
because it was calories. And people like find it so funny, but it literally saved me because I didn't think I was just going out with my mates, and you forget like I know alcohol has calories, and this is calories, but it was calories, and that's what I needed. And so then going second and third year, that's when I started. The worst thing is I started seeing my times get quicker, my weight go down, and I noticed like literally after that marathon, I did the 10K Olympic trials and I was in shape to run so fast. But the week before, I just did the hardest. Like I ran a 10-mile training session and it was like in 45:20 on the track. It was the fourth fastest time in British history. And it was a training session, but that was a week before the trials. I turn up to trials and I just can't run. I'm so tired. I pull out of that and then I looked at a photo a week later and I thought I would look a bit heavy. And that's when my head just literally went because then I had a bad relationship. I started weighing every single thing I was eating. I weighed myself every single day. I then signed with NN. I went to Uganda in 2022 for this early stages. And I got down to 51, 52 kilos for a 23-year-old guy, which is not good. I lasted 2, 3 weeks out there and then my energy levels dropped. I did a blood test after that. My iron levels were basically down to anemia. My testosterone was 4. And at the time, women's testosterone had to be below 5. So I technically could have competed in the women's category in terms of testosterone. Um, I lost quite a few friends because I just when you're struggling with this, your mind just almost loses its power to think about anything else but food. But I was neglecting it so much. I ruined family holidays. I'm surprised my girlfriend's still with me at times, but I was never horrible to her. I just wasn't there because I physically didn't have the energy to do anything else but train. Um, and 2022 was probably one of the worst years of my life in terms of I had some really good results and that showed what I was capable of, but I was running on empty. But then every time I ran hard, I would get ill or injured. So it's basically like you go up and then down, you go up, down. Then I did big half when Farah and Jack Rowe beat me. 2 weeks later, I got a stress fracture in my foot. I then thought, okay, I need to smash training. I didn't put on any weight during the injury block, which made no sense because when you're injured, your body is literally screaming for nutrition. I was doing 20 hours of cross train, or 20 hours staring at an elliptical machine a week. Um, my foot stress fracture took another month to heal because it didn't have the energy to actually like heal itself. Got back into running, did a bit of running, and then February 2023, I got a sacrum stress fracture, which is in the lower back. And sacrum stress fracture is like, that is completely down to basically energy deficiency. So I'd done barely any running, but the damage I'd done over the years, my body just cracked. So, of course, in February 2023, I never wanted to run again when I found out I had another stress fracture. And I spoke to my coaches. I had 5 weeks completed off. And, as runners, taking 5 weeks of no running, no cross training, no walking, it's a long, long bloody time. But I knew I needed to get as strong as possible. So I went back home because I knew my parents were going to be there for me, and they were. And I went through phases of like, when you're not training, you almost feel like guilty, and it was a tough time. But ever since then, I've never been like, my relationships with everyone's gone up. It's been the most amazing time of my life. 2023, of course, I started picking up like at the end niggles because my body I'd done nothing for 5 weeks. So like, you get back into running. I moved coach at the start of 2022 to Gavin and Joe Pavey, and those two have just been, they're basically, I call them every single day. Basically, they're just my second parents almost. And 2023, my times were good, decent, but I knew they weren't still never going to be incredible because my main focus was getting my bloods good. And my blood's now on a very healthy line. Of course, bloods can always be better and better, but there's no scary thought. The only thing is my bone health, because of the damage I've done, are quite low, my bone health. So it's still an indication I need to work on that. I put on 10 kilos, but I never weigh. I stopped weighing myself for 2 years. Then I did that fitness test at the start of this year, put on 10 kilos. And I just want to show people, like, and I did a fitness test. And my results showed my VO2 had actually gone up, but my running economy had gone down because running economy is divided by your weight. And because I was so light before, it looked so good. But my actual values were very similar. And then during this marathon block, I'm just weighing myself once a month to make sure I don't lose as much as I used to, because I could lose 2-3 kilos in a week. Whereas I lost 3 kilos in 2 months, which I think is a very healthy way of doing it instead of losing 2 kilos in a week. But I still going with the mindset of, okay, I can't do what the Emil and Phil Sessman are doing in terms of their training. I can't do that yet. I need to do it in my own way. So I'm slowly building, and like, to run 62:20 at Bath Half, which isn't even the fastest course, and win it, like, I could have cried yesterday because it shows, like, I looked back, but 2 years ago I was on crutches and couldn't do anything. And I know people say, oh, 2 years is quite a long time, but it's not like just an injury or something. My body was at zero. Like, I had nothing in terms of, my DEXA scan showed I could have been in a wheelchair at 30, 35 if I didn't make improvements. My bloods were that low, I physically couldn't train. So to go from basically under the ground almost to where I was, and not many men or not many athletes have actually got back to where they were post Red S. I'm trying to do it in a very sensible manner because I know I used to do it, but when you get injured, you want to get as fit as possible straight away. But my aim is 2028, for example, the Olympics. So that's another 3 years. If I gradually build now, I know I can get there. And again, beforehand, I used to smash training and not really show the results. Whereas my time now is, okay, training is the consistency is the biggest thing now. I've had 2 good years of consistency, whereas before, not really. And my results will show. But yeah, and then I spoke to Project Red S, Pippa Wolfen, who was amazing, unreal. And I'm now trying to work alongside her because she's having a second child. She's doing so much. Like, she should almost get knighthood for the work she's done. It's just incredible, like helping so many women. I'm trying to get through it because I don't want to see any youngsters go through what I had been through, because running is such a brilliant mental thing. And to not be able to run and to see so many coaches who don't understand it is wild. Like the craziest thing was, like, a lot of GPs here don't actually understand what Red S is. And last summer I went back to Hong Kong with my girlfriend, and I did a talk in my old school because they just love what I've done with the world in terms of my athletic career. And in GCSE, there's a topic in PE, physical education. There is actually a topic in the syllabus for Red S. So a random school in Hong Kong is learning about Red S, and GPs in England don't know what it is. And I just don't have a clue how that's possible. So I really, really try, like, I want to be as best as I can be in the running world, but I also want to be that person, not an influencer, but that person to help prevent people going through this down this line. And I think yesterday showing, like, I've won a race, I'm strong, I'm heavier, and I'm healthy, hopefully shows a lot of youngsters like lighter is not faster, it's not sustainable. So yeah, that's my, sorry, it's quite long, but that's my
No, it's an
sort of
incredible achievement. And like you speak about Project Red S, and how important it is for you to like raise awareness and support for these athletes like dealing with the same condition. Um, I just wanted to ask about obviously Joe Pavey and the Nike running team. How significant was their support during like this period of your career?
it was, well, Joe and Gavin, like, I sort of went, so NN, they're based in Netherlands. And so I couldn't really see anyone in the Netherlands. So I needed someone in the UK. And Gavin's been in the sport for years. So, because Joe went to 5 Olympics, for example. So they have a lot of contacts. So I saw it. It took me about 4 or 5 psychologists to really know the one I wanted to speak to. I spoke to Renee, a nutritionist, who's just put out a load of books. And we just needed to get the right people in my right headspace. And I just literally messaged Pippa Woodman almost every day. Just, is this what happens during it? What blah blah blah. So I was just throwing ideas. I was trying to build like the smallest but the perfect group of people I could find, and that's what I did. And yeah, Gavin and Joe, they just never gave up on me. And I know coaches should not give up, but like, they they have their own family like stuff to deal with, and they dealt with me as well. And I could tell they were both on the phone with me yesterday. Gavin was came to the race. It was funny. He used to live in Bath, but he parked outside of Bath, ran to the half marathon, did his jog, and then just stayed there. And then had to go back home to just look after the kids because Joe was commenting on Barcelona. So, and when he was at the finish line, I just wanted, like, it looks like I've never seen a smile that big on his face, and he's just like, look what we've done. Like 2 years of all this, and they've been there the whole time. And it's the most consistent training I've had with them. And yeah, it was just, I just want to almost give back to them. And I think these results, like, for example, Ines Fitzgerald is my training partner. And even Gavin said yesterday, like, it's been a good few weeks. She went to European, she's going to World Indoors. I've now won Bath Half. And we have so many other members in our group. But yeah, I just want to almost give back to them and my parents as well. And my dad called me this morning and said it was the most amazing race he's ever watched me do. And he is the loudest person in the race. He will, like, it's crazy how loud he screams. So I just want to almost give back to them because they've been there for me for the last 2 years. So I'm over them that.
And now your confidence obviously must be sky high. You're obviously looking ahead to April the 27th, the highly
Yeah.
anticipated marathon. I mean, the lineup is star-studded to say the least. Like, how excited are you to get there on race day and get going?
Well, right now, I did a jog this morning. I have a little 30 minutes now, and I cannot run properly because my quads are in pain. I need to be very smart with the next 6 weeks because like for example, Bath, I turn up to, I was at a start line healthy. My main aim to London is I'd rather underdo it but be there healthy than overdo it and not be there healthy. People are going like after running yesterday because like if I say for I did a Valencia half, it'd be 30 to 45 seconds quicker just because it's flat and it doesn't have a massive hill. You're not lapping runners in Bath, for example. And the UK wind is always more than the European wind. It's always like that. Um, so I just need to be a bit careful. And people have said, what about the 208? Because world champ stand is 208, sub 208. But I know if I tried that, I would have to push training that extra little bit now. And I kind of, but my whole thing of this running, my new like running body is to show people I'm taking it slow instead of what I used to do and just smash training, get as quick. So my aim is just go for like 210, 211. So basically, I want to run sub 211 because it would be my first PB in 3 years. And over a marathon is insane. And to run 210 in London places you quite high up because it is notoriously a harder course than Valencia, for example, because first of all, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. You never know. Um, and yeah, so I'm still going off with the intention of 65, 30 through halfway because I know like after yesterday, it's 3 minutes slower than I needed to run yesterday. I can maintain that. And then the second half, I'm every person I see in front of me, I'm going to catch up to them. Like that's my aim. And you've seen the list of athletes. I'm going to try and tick off as many of those athletes as I can. And it's really nice because I'm still not going into this race with that. That's another big thing because when I ran 60/30, every single race I did, I had like pressure on myself. It could be a 1500 meters and I'm slow. I cannot run very fast. But like I remember turning up to 1500 and someone beat me and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I beat you." And I'm like, I'm not a 50, I'm a marathon half guy. But now the pressure's still off my shot. Even though I ran really well yesterday, I still don't have that pressure. And I think that's really benefiting me at the minute because a lot of athletes do struggle with the pressure when they're at that top level. So I think with the London Marathon, and because the field is so strong, I'm almost like not the dark horse, I will never win it, but like that person in the back row who could just sculpt a good result and just catch people out. But yeah, I want these 6 weeks just to be over now. Like it's almost like the grey period now when the training, you get the last big training sessions, and so it goes one bad way or amazing. Like it's a very fine line, this marathon rope, and I'm squeezing it a bit, and if it pops, I will be so upset. But I'm not going to allow that to happen. So I'm being sensible and going for 65 through halfway and see what I've left in the second half.
And just finally, you're known for obviously bringing some fun into the races, whether it's you've dyed your
Yeah.
target to your hair before, wearing mismatched socks, unique shoes. Can we expect to see any of that at the marathon this year?
Well, I was fully orange yesterday. I wore a hat yesterday. I'm definitely going to do something with my shoes. Um, I want to do some. I might. I'm tempted to dye my hair. I really am. I don't know what color. But I'm going to wear a hat for the first half because it's now my lucky hat because I don't win many races and I wore it. So I need my parents at halfway because it does get quite warm under a hat. Um, but I will do something because I always find with races when I run well is when I'm enjoying myself, and if it means doing something, and then it means when I go see other athletes, other people, we're not just talking about running, we're talking about like the thing I've done. It's quite enjoyable as well. So there'll be something. I need to think of something, but there will be something.